Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. Certainly that if there is questions that you don't want to lose, and you make sure you put them in the chat box as Syd's talking, and then we'll come back to them certainly after Syd's finished presenting. And then that way we don't interrupt his train of flow, and that we don't forget our questions either. So that's what I love about the chat box. We will make sure we review it. Okay, sounds good. I think hopefully everybody's good to go. Syd?
Yeah, I am.
I think you're on.
Yeah, I will stop interrupt there, take over the screen.
Yeah, there we go.
Share. Now everyone can see that.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
All right. So can everyone see the main screen or my presentation notes?
We can see your main screen. Thanks, Syd.
All right. Sometimes you just have to double check, right?
Exactly.
I was in one presentation when we saw everything that was going on in this presentation notes. So that wasn't good. So we don't want to do that again.
Thanks for asking. Hey, you're managing risk, aren't you?
I'm managing my own risk. Exactly.
There you go. Great example.
So, thank you for the EDGE program for having me speak today. As entrepreneurs, there's a lot of stuff happening with everyone's business. And one of the things that a lot of people forget is how to manage their risk, right? So a little bit about myself. I am a native from Winnipeg. I'm originally from Winnipeg, not a native. Let me correct that. But native Indigenous person. But I did grow up in Winnipeg. I did start off my career as an engineer. I used to design and build TV stations back then. And one of the last TV stations I built was Business News Network. And when they first launched in 1999, and speaking to a lot of the hosts they had on air, Kim Parley, Lou Schizas, Kevin O'Leary, I realized I had more of a knack for business than I did as an engineer. So I transitioned my career. I went to work for a global manufacturer in product development, sales, and marketing. I did that for a number of years. And one of the things I realized is a lot of the wealthy people around the world and in Canada are business owners, right? So 2015, I decided to start my own business. And one of the things I realized was there's a lot of misinformation in Canada on how to properly drive up your net worth with your business. The system's very complex on purpose. And if you don't have the full story, you will hit unexpected tax potholes, right? So that's one of the areas of where I decided to get in, because I feel that for every business owner, you have a right to this knowledge, not just the ones that can afford the high price for a Bay Street lawyer. So with that being said, types of risk for business, there's all kinds, right? There's no limit to how much risk you can have as a business owner. But today's presentation, I'm really going to focus on two, which is financial risk and health risk. Especially when you're a small and growing to medium size, right? I think those are the two that are really important, and you really have to pay attention to.
Love it. Very timely in the market that we're in right now, Syd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that as a young business owner, you have to remember that the business, especially if it's incorporated as a profit or non-for-profit, is a separate entity than yourself, right? So with that being said, you have to separate your personal finance and the business finance, right? And I find that a lot of business owners forget to pay themselves, right? And you have to live, right? So, it's funny, when you go on a plane and you sit on the plane and they go through their safety procedures, they say, hey, as the parent, there's a problem, you put on your air mask first and then you put your child's on, right? From a business owner point of view, you as the owner, you're the parent. The business is your child. So one of the things you want to do from a finance point of view is make sure that you pay yourself and you have that basic income on the personal side to keep everything else going. Because if you don't survive, the business doesn't survive. So how do you pay yourself? Right? Depending on your structure, you can pay yourself a salary or you can pay yourself a dividend, right? You definitely want to have a personal tax-free savings account for emergency funds on that personal side. And then always having to look forward into retirement, again, depending on your corporate structure, you have either an RSP account or a holding company. And the reason why I say an RSP or a holding company, depending on the way you're structured, it is more tax advantageous to have a holding company for your retirement as opposed to an RSP, right? So that's some of the things that you want to think about. Now, when it comes to wealth, we all have our paycheck, right? And you have various expenses coming off your paycheck. And for most people, that net pay gets allocated according to their lifestyle. And then what's sort of kind of left over, right, is what they put away and they save. What I like to do with my business owners is get in the habit of pay yourself first because you're the most important person. So we want to do, that's the first thing you want to do, right? Take a little bit off of that net pay, put it away automatically, don't think about it. And then life actually becomes easier or budgeting becomes easier because after the investment, everything is disposable. Less things to think about, more time in that brain sphere to focus on growing the business, right? So that's one thing. And then on top of that is what do we do with that investment, right? I find with a lot of young business owners, they think, well, I have a lot of years to catch up and I don't want to put away a little bit of money right now. And I would say that is putting yourself at risk because if you understand how compound interest works, it really works out for you when you're younger. The only guarantee that you're going to make money in any type of investment is time, right? The sooner you start, the better off you are, right?
I love that you're emphasizing that, Syd, because I know lots of people that as well that have not, did not make those plans when they were younger and now trying to catch up before retirement age. And it's amazing how if you just make that investment when you're younger, that it will make the difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
It makes the difference.
Yeah. It's tremendous the amount of difference it can make.
Absolutely.
Right. And actually, I have a little game for everyone. So this is the audience participation part of the presentation. So I have two sisters, Ethel and Meredith. So Ethel is on your left, right, and Meredith is on your right, and they both invested. So Ethel invested into this investment. She put $6,000 a year from the time she was 22 to 33 for a total of $72,000. And then she got married. She had kids. She stopped investing, but she had that initial pot. And then Meredith decided, hey, I'm going to get into the same investment. And she carried on in the same investment. And she put $6,000 a year from the time she was 34 to 65. She's put a significantly more inside of this investment. Who actually ended up more when they reached 65?
I know the answer, so I'm curious if somebody else wants to put something in the chat box.
There's no right or wrong. Well, there is, but we won't chastise you for it.
Yeah, exactly. Does anybody want to comment? Oh, somebody. Thanks, Sarah. I love using the. Is anybody curious? Anybody want to put something in the chat box to say? You can even put left or right. That's okay.
Mm.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. No takers.
Oh, here.
Well,
I hear a couple. Right. So we got a couple comments here. We've got somebody who said it's tricky, the left woman, but she didn't continue saving. Or I have the right person, the lady on the right.
Okay. Well, it's the lady on the left that actually ends up with more money.
Yeah.
And the reason why is although she put less in, because she put it in earlier, the power of compounding worked in her favor.
And I
Right?
think you're key about that, Sid, because the compounding is the part that people miss that. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't know what you don't know, right? If you don't understand the principle, how would you know?
Exactly. I will say this, in the stock market from 1929 to now, even though we've had, numerous wars in North America, we've had 13 recessions, we had inflation at, well at 19%, right, in the late 80s. The stock market has returned annually roughly about 10% year over year, right? So it's time, right?
Yeah,
You absolutely have to have time in your hand.
yeah.
And if that investment actually produced a little bit more, the difference is really dramatic,
Wow. Look at the
right?
difference. Holy smokes, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. So, when you want to talk about financial risk is, you definitely want to take care of yourself personally,
Mhm.
finance wise. You can throttle your income as the business grows, but make sure that you are taking some money off the table. And if the business goes into default risk, at least you have some savings, right, or some investments outside of the company.
Sid, can I just ask, because a couple of the participants would like you to explain compound interest, please.
Awesome. So what compound interest is? Say for example, I bought Apple shares, right? I bought it at $24, and it paid out a dividend and it returned about 5% in that year, right? That 5% gets reinvested back into Apple. And then next year, I get the 5%, not only on the initial investment I have, but also the gain I made the previous year.
Right.
And it's that constant compounding year over year that generates more returns for you.
So your point is that, just so I'm clear too, and we're all clear, because is that you're making money on that reinvestment because it's
Exactly.
compounding, right? At a higher, there's more that's to be made money on, if in layman's terms, if that makes
Exactly.
sense.
So,
Yeah.
so for example, if I put in $1,000 in first year, and I made 10%, which is $100,
$100,
right?
right?
Right.
Right.
And I reinvested that $100, and then next year I make 10% again return, but I don't make $100. I make 110 because I
That's
already
right,
put in.
because it's on the 1100 as opposed to, that's right.
Exactly.
So it's not
Right.
because there was a question if, was it a royalty, but it's not a royalty, it's just a percent or a commission. It's not that. It's just every
Exactly.
time what you make on it gets added to your original investment, and then you get interest on that. There's a higher amount that you're getting because the interest is on that higher amount.
Exactly.
Right.
And we have to remember, like when we talk about investments, we're talking about investing in company stocks. If we talk about equities, right? And corporate stocks are like companies like RBC and TD. And we just heard that they just posted huge profits for the last quarter, right? Well, part of those profits gets shared out to all their shareholders as dividends, right? So that's earnings on the number of shares that you own. Majority of stock owners have those dividends get reinvested back in, which buy more shares. So the next time there's a dividend payout, they get paid more dividends because they own more shares, and
Does
that's
that make
compounding.
sense? Yeah. Is that clear with everybody? And I love the chat. If chat is more easy to use, then that's great. Just want to make sure that makes sense to everybody. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, good.
Great. Thank you for that. That's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. So from a financial risk, like I said, we definitely want to make sure that you have a plan to capture your income on the personal side, whether that's salary or dividends, and then have most of that income fund your lifestyle. But we definitely want to invest into a tax-free savings account to make sure that your money that you paid yourself is growing on the personal side. All right.
And yeah, and can I just add, and I'm sorry if I hope it's not interruptive, that I'm
No, go
interrupting,
ahead.
but it's just nice to have that conversation. I appreciate what you were saying in the beginning too, about having budgets and having those things, because I think as business owners, we forget that part of what we, in paying ourselves, that is to cover the expenses that we need and the budgeting and things like that. And so we sort of think about the business and the needs of the business and the expenses, but we forget to pay ourselves, right, as well. So,
Exactly.
and
And
it's very easy to do,
and I see that a lot, especially with young business owners, right? As they're
Yeah,
developing the business, and I get it. I've had a few startups myself, and you are putting more time and effort into it than what
yeah,
it's producing. But there is a point of time where it should be producing a profit, and you have to start paying yourself from that profit,
absolutely.
or else you are the driver of the business. And if you're not being taken care of, the business won't survive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Right.
no, I appreciate that.
Now, and that actually leads into the next topic, right? What happens if you're not around,
Mhm.
right? Like what happens personally and what happens to the business.
Yeah,
Like one of the factors that a lot of business owners don't factor in is what happens if I get sick or if I have an injury,
yeah,
right? That's that health risk that we talk about,
for
right?
sure.
And I would say that what a lot of people don't realize that the majority of bankruptcies in Canada, although we have a great medical system and social system with OHIP, more than 40% of it is still bankruptcy is still resulted in health risk,
Mhm. Yeah,
right? And we see it all the time. You know, we would, you know, I would actually ask a lot of business owners what is their biggest asset,
mhm.
right? A lot of them will say their home or their business, and I would say the biggest asset is them, right?
100%. They are their
Uh,
business for a lot of these entrepreneurs, right? They are the
well,
brains, they're the intellectual property, they're the physical labor, they're all of it, right?
oh
Especially
yeah,
starting a new business too.
but I would say also, there I've seen a lot of $10 million top line revenue businesses where if the owner disappeared, the business will shut down,
Yep,
right?
that's true.
So, when we look at all the car accidents in Canada, only 7.4% of that results in a fatality or serious injury, right? But the stats on the likelihood of a 30-year-old non-smoker having a critical illness, disability, or death is staggering,
Wow. Yeah,
right? So, let's take a step back on that. We would, without thinking about it, insure my car, but are you insuring yourself,
right.
right? Like, what's going to fund my personal life or the business if something were to happen to me health
Well,
wise?
and I work with small business a lot too, Sid, and I agree with you because as to your point, if somebody becomes ill or incapacitated and can't run the business, the bills still need to be paid. The rent still needs to be paid. If you have employees, they still need to be paid. If your partner or spouse is also relying on the income from the business to come in to help with the family needs, and that's the part that we forget, right? We forget
Yeah,
about that, and that's why it's so critical what you're talking about, to be thoughtful of this and managing this risk, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
And I have a personal story also. Like
yeah.
I was 34 years old. I got into a bike accident. I was down with my friends. We had a bachelor party down in Bermuda. Got
Wow.
into a little moped accident. I was out for a year and a bit.
Wow.
Uh, uh, in recovery. And the one thing I will say is when you are injured like that, every doctor and health professional will tell you take your time, get better,
Yeah,
so you don't have lasting issues. Well, no one's going to take the time and get better if you're worried about paying the bills,
absolutely. Yeah,
right? So we definitely want to look at your risk factor on the health side. Luckily for me, I had the proper insurance, and I spent the whole year just thinking about getting back together because I didn't have to worry about paying the mortgage.
That's right.
Right.
But you could recover properly in a good way because you knew that things were covered, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, peace of
Exactly.
mind. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and those are pretty big stats there, especially a 30-year-old non-smoker. My goodness. Wow.
Yeah, actually, I know this is another personal story. My wife's hairdresser, the last time she was able to go see her last year, her brother-in-law, 34-year-old, had two young kids, became a quadriplegic because he was on an ATV and
Oh my goodness.
he tipped over, his back hit a tree stump, and now he can't work. Right. The unfortunate part is he didn't have the right insurance, and so it's really all on the wife now to support the
To
family.
support the family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the stories are out there. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
they are.
I usually say to my wife, if I ever hear a story and people are crowdfunding for the family to help with the bills, that they didn't have the right financial planner.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah. Yeah,
anyways,
well, very important to be talking about this now while we're building our empires here, right? Yeah.
exactly. And the reality is, it is far cheaper to insure yourself when you're younger than when you're older,
Yeah.
right? So, so there's different types of health insurance out there on the personal side, and again, with business owners, you definitely have to have a dual mindset. One is personal, one is on the business side. On the personal side, we want to look at disability insurance, critical illness, life insurance, long-term care. What is the disability? So the two most important ones, I think, they're all important, but disability and critical illness are very important, right? And the reason why I say that is this is insurance if something happens to me and I survive,
Mm, right.
right? So disability is that monthly paycheck that will pay you while you get better, right? So it's based off of your income. It will give you that monthly paycheck. As I said, if you become disabled, one of the things a lot of people don't realize that disability insurance covers you not just for physical injury, but also mental,
Mm,
right? 57% of all disability claims are for mental health issues, especially for business owners getting overworked, overstressed. You know what I mean? It's a lot of mental strain for business owners.
mhm.
And one of the things that you do, it definitely wanted to cover is that type of injury. Critical illness is that is a list of 24 critical illnesses. Is a lump sum payment, and you can use that lump sum payment for anything that you want. What a lot of businesses owners that I know do is they get coverage to cover them to get immediate treatment in the U.S. so they don't have to waiting list in Canada. So, real life example, had a business owner. He had a $500,000 critical illness policy. He got diagnosed with prostate cancer, confirmed it was Sunnybrook. And a lot of people don't know prostate cancer, highly curable if you get immediate treatment. Sunnybrook had a 3-month waiting list. He went down to a hospital in Buffalo. They diagnosed him. He was scheduled for surgery the next day. He did ask them for a 45-day payment plan. And the reason why it was 45 days was very specific because for critical illness, you have to be diagnosed with the injury and survive for 30 days.
Okay.
Right? So he also got the treatment. He survived the 30th day. The insurance company gave him a check for $500,000. He paid the hospital and he kept the rest.
Wow. Interesting, eh?
Right? So very important. Life insurance, obviously, that's for premature death.
Yeah.
And then long-term care. This is becoming a big issue in Canada, long-term care. The history of long-term care facilities in Ontario during COVID,
Yeah.
right? This is to help for that ongoing medical care that you're going to need when you're a senior and you can't take care of yourself. And actually, it's becoming a bigger issue for Canadians in the
Well,
years.
it's interesting you say that because my oldest daughter works in a long-term care home. She's a recreational therapist. So, it's amazing how many people are in these homes and dependent on proper insurance to be able to afford.
Yes.
Because the price tags of these long-term care facilities and, monthly is, it's $5,000 and $6,000 a month, and upwards depending on type of care and things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I had a chat with Chartwell, a
Yes.
Chartwell facility in Mississauga. Their 24-hour care cost is $12,000 a month.
Yep, 12,000. So do the math times 12 months of a year, times years, how many years you would like to live.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just staggering, though, right? It's absolutely staggering.
Yeah, and a lot of my planning now, especially for retirees, is stress testing their nest egg to see if they can survive a long-term care issue.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And
Now,
actually, I just want to mention.
Go ahead.
One of the participants here, Sarah, actually thought this was helpful too because she does have a chronic illness, and recognizing that there is these types of insurance available is helpful, so that there's cushions there in case whatever happens, right? We're wishing for positive things, but right.
Exactly. As one thing I've learned with businesses, especially from the way I thought of it when I was younger to how I am now, a lot more planning has to go on protecting the risk, right? Than the possible gain. So
I agree. It's good that we're having this conversation.
Exactly. And like I said, for a business owner, you definitely want to prioritize yourself because without you, you wouldn't have the business.
Yeah.
So the type of insurance that you can have on the business side is business overhead insurance. You spoke about that earlier about what happens to me, who's going to pay the employees, who's going to pay the rent and the bills. Well, that's what business overhead insurance does. Then we also have key man insurance. So this is for very important employees, right? Whether it's for disability or for premature death, you can take out insurance on very key people within your organization, right? So it is a benefit to the company, and the company can use that benefit to backfill with a freelancer or find that replacement, cover the loss of revenue of that key person not being there. So that's also very important. The other thing is for a business owner is keeping your employees healthy. So that's where that group health and dental insurance also comes in, right?
I never knew of that key man insurance. That's fascinating.
Yeah, key man insurance. So it's very, very important, and that I see that a lot when it comes to software companies, right? The head developer, right?
The critical, for sure. Yeah, that's interesting.
The brainchild of the software architect, we want to make sure he's protected, right? So, because if something were to happen to them, and I've seen this on the software side when I was in that world.
Yeah.
If something were to happen to them, it takes another software architect months before they can figure out exactly how was the other person developed that, right? So if there's a loss of revenue, you want to protect the business from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
So those are the type of health insurance that you have. When it comes to how it lays up in most people's times of lives, this is how it plays out, right? So the type of insurance that you want, critical illness can last from when you're very young all the way to you're very old. You have life insurance, which when you're younger, you want term life insurance, right? Because what you're really protecting is your income, right? You don't have a lot of assets when you're younger, but you want to protect that future income, right? And you definitely have long-term disability. As you progress in life, you want to change that, right? You want to change that temporary life insurance to permanent life insurance. You definitely want to look at long-term care. And there is a lot of discussion in the world about permanent life insurance. And I will say this, it's not for everyone, right? But it is definitely there for business owners, and it will protect your assets because it's the only investment vehicle. And I use the word investment carefully because permanent life insurance is not so much about the life insurance, it's more of an investment, right? And it's used to either grow or equalize your estate when you're passing on to the next generation, right? So,
Right.
But it's not cost efficient when you're in your 30s or 40s,
Right. Makes sense.
right? You
Yeah.
have to have the assets to pay for it,
Should be able to do that. Yeah,
right?
that's interesting.
So that's how it sort of outplays in your timeline as you along your age. As you are in your business life cycle. So I did it personally, and then I also did it from your business life cycle, right?
Great.
So you have your startup, you have your growth, your maturity, your transition. There is a point of time where if the business exceptionally well, you want to sell it, right? So in the startup phase, you definitely want to be looking at managing the business cash flow, making sure that you can pay yourself. You want to protect the family income, right? And well-being. So that's where that term disability critical illness will come into play. If you have the cash flow, you definitely want to put it in the startup phase of the business, right? When you're in the growth and expansion side, you want to look at taking care of the employees, right? Getting that health and dental inside for the employees, the drug plan, the business overhead insurance, the key person insurance. And if you have a partner, you want to buy, sell insurance on the life and disability. One of the key things I do want to say is if you have a business with a partner, you definitely want to make sure you have a buy sell agreement in, but also that is funded, right? A lot of horror stories of one partner dying and shares rolling over to the wife or the son, and it's a nightmare because you have a partner.
And you like that partner or spouse, and yes, you and I could probably write a 3-day seminar on all the horror stories we've heard, Syd, over the years.
Oh yeah, I totally
Even
agree.
if they're your best friend from kindergarten, they were your, mother, father, brother, doesn't matter who it is. Partnership agreements. I am a big, huge advocate of shareholder partnership agreements, regardless of state of business, because as you say, once something happens, then, it becomes a snowball running down a hill, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe how many times I've come across a business owner where we looked at their buy sell because they had partners or multiple partners. One is not funded, or two is not even signed. And it's like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Good luck with this. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So, like I said, there's a lot of things to know and a lot of things to do as a business owner, but we're here to help guide you.
Well, like you said, it's good that we're having this conversation because this is what it's all about.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, for a mature company, you definitely want to look at whether an individual pension plan is required or feasible. We want that permanent life insurance, and those two really depend on your corporate structure. They really are good for for-profit companies, and 9 times out of 10 will be also structuring a holding company for these clients to house this. So we want to separate the operating business from your personal assets, right?
Yep.
And then the transition, again, permanent life insurance. And depending on the size of the business, there's also, really want to look at the corporate structure, because depending on the structure, we can really negate the taxes owed on the business that could be sold, right? So we want to take advantage of the lifetime capital gains exemptions And if we can multiply it out, we definitely will be we want to do that.
Love it. Yep. That's great.
Now, the moment of truth, right? Walk through all these scenarios of what you should do, and nor do I want anyone in this call to go out and do this on their own. You definitely want a financial advisor, right? So I have a bunch of questions and sort of highlights the things that you want to look for in an advisor. So sort of run through them quickly,
Sure.
and if you already have one, tally them up, compare the questions to your guy, and if he's at a certain score, you have a good one.
Yep.
Right? So have you heard from an advisor more than once a year? Right? Do you get a response to the calls within by email or call within 24 hours? When you talk to your advisor, have you talked about what type of CPP or OES? Now, CPP, OES, that's the Canadian Pension Plan. OES is the Old Age Security. Depending on how you take money out of the corporation, out of your business, you may qualify for CPP or you may not, right? So that all has to be factored into your plan. My advisor asked me questions about my life, my goals, and my aspirations. I've never met any person or any business owner that had the same lifestyle, same goals and dreams. So your plan and your advisor should be well aware of how you want to live your life. You have a copy of a written financial plan, and is it updated often? Now, financial plans. An investment strategy is not a financial plan. An insurance strategy is not a financial plan, right? There's about 6 key areas that's in another question that you have to have covered in one cohesive plan. If you're in a relationship, both partners' views have been addressed. I never met a couple where they wanted the exact same things.
Yep. Yep.
My advisor tries to help me improve my financial habits. That's we talked about that. Pay yourself first, right? That's a financial habit.
Yeah.
My advisor covers matters beyond investments like debt, like taxes, insurance, and estate planning, right? A good financial plan should have all of those things covered in it. I have a clear understanding of what I have in my portfolio and why. I have maximized all of my income splitting and tax deferral opportunities. And my advisor has clearly explained the cost of ownership in my investments. My advisor is a certified financial planner. So here's a new thing in the world of advisors. Not all advisors are created equal, and in the attempt to apply standards, the CFP is playing a bigger role now. CFP is an international designation, is the top gold standard of financial advice that you're going to have in Canada, and it is a rigorous process to have your CFP. Right? It is a 3-year journey with about 8 exams that you have to pass through to get it.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
It is a big deal. But with that being said, if you are working with a CFP, ask them if they are still qualified to give insurance, investments, and taxation advice. Depending on the institution that they are with, that institution may stop them from discussing those areas.
Right.
My advisor understands my corporate structure and has experience with business owners. Again, the big way to increase your wealth is to minimize your taxes. And as business owners, your corporate structure can play a big part of that.
Absolutely.
I have a current will or power of attorney. I cannot tell you the amount of times I met a person or a business owner that does not have a will. All right.
Me
Um,
too. Incredible.
a will is absolutely important to have. It doesn't matter whether you are single, young, or old, you should have a will.
Exactly.
Uh, my advice is a simplifier. I come out with interactions with great clarity. That's a sign of a good advisor. They can make complex things very easy for you to understand. I consider my savings will last through my retirement, even with the market volatility. Oh, sorry, I'm confident. I misread that. Um, that's the clarity a good financial plan should give you, right? That no matter what happens in the market, that you'll have understanding of where you stand with it. Now, how many times did you say yes to any of these questions? If you said most for the majority of them, you have a good advisor. If you have 6 or less, you need to run to a different one.
Yeah, that's great. And it's really like an interview process, isn't it, Sid? Like, you've got to, you have to ask these questions. These are great questions to get clarity on when you're interviewing. It's just because you meet somebody doesn't mean you have to do business with them, right? It's very, very
Oh,
important
absolutely.
to have those interviews to question, talk to a few people and get that vibe and that understanding and see how they rate and rank on answering those questions before you make those decisions. This is your future, your money,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
And it is. And so, it's funny because you see those Quest Trade ads, right?
Hmm.
Right? Why am I paying this advisor? And if all they are giving you is um, investment advice, then they're right.
Yeah,
Then what am I paying for?
that's right.
That fee should cover all of these questions, should give you a financial plan, should be able to address your corporate structure of your business owners, should be able to talk about taxation and insurance, right?
Absolutely.
And execute all of that. Now, if you're getting that type of advice, then the fee you're paying is justified.
Exactly.
But if you're only getting investment advice, then yeah, you are overpaying.
Yeah, that's great. That's actually a great way of clarifying that. Thank you for doing that because that makes it clear because there is a lot of push on those commercials and people asking that question, right? What am I paying for, right? So I think
Yeah,
that's very valid that a proper why you're paying the money is because they can speak to all of these topics in depth and information and knowledge and understanding, right? So that makes
exactly.
sense. Yeah.
And I will say for a business owner, you're going to have a lot of advisors out there helping you, sales coaches, business coaches. One of the ones you want to put into your pocket is a good financial advisor that understands areas of insurance, investments, and corporate structure. Because the fee that you pay them will be very small compared to the amount of gains in the market, and also how they can reduce your taxes out in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I agree.
So one person that just came late.
That's all right. All right.
So
That's
that's all I
interesting.
got. It's a lot packed into one. What I will say though is really take scope, right,
Yeah.
of reducing your risk. Um, it doesn't matter where you are in your business plan um, or in your business stage. Get a good advisor, have a plan written out, so it gives you clarity. And the amount of time that it takes to sit down with a good advisor to give you clarity on the personal side and on the business side, maybe 2-3 hours a year. As a
Exactly.
small investments to really help you grow and with clarity on what's going to happen.
And I think to your point, Sid, that the more, information is power. And so the
Yep,
more that you have, and this can aid and assist your business planning process, right? It's to work with alongside your business planning process. It's not to interfere or take away. They're complementary, right? Because you
exactly.
make sure you make the right decisions when you need to make those right decisions along the way,
E-
So
Exactly. So,
yeah.
part of the meeting I had with that lawyer this morning was really, all right, this is the way you're going to structure your billables going forward. This is your projected revenue. Well, this is the amount of money we need to run your lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
Where you don't have to worry about it. And this is the best way to take that money out of the company.
Yeah.
And it's really that clarity, right? Of sitting down, working out her budget, working out the best way to invest in her future. And where only thing she had to worry about is making sure she hit a top line revenue and run the business.
Which is what she's there to do in the first place, running her own business, right? That's
Exactly.
clarity
And
objectivity.
And we meet with her for a couple hours a year, and then she has clarity. And every time she has a question, or something changes, we meet, we update, and we project forward again.
Yeah.
And that's what a good advisor should be able to do for you.
Well, I'm happy to say that I do have an advisor I've been working with for years, and I'm happy to say they did score in the top one. So that's good for him.
Good for him, exactly. And there are a lot of good ones out there, but there's also
Absolutely.
a lot of bad ones.
A lot of bad ones too. Absolutely. And I have dealt with bad ones. I had dealt with earlier in my career when I was I had a small business and doing stuff, and I had met with an advisor that gave me bad advice and went in a different direction. And shortly after I got that advice and made some moves that they had suggested, then the stock, remember the markets crashed. This is about 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me many years to repay back a situation that I should not have entered in the first place had I gotten the proper advice.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I learned very quickly in the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah. What I say is, for everything that you want to do, is much easier to see it on paper as many times as you need to, because it's easier to make mistakes on paper. It's hard to do it in real life.
Well, and I think you bring a good point, Syd, and I know that the comments in the chat box were that people were finding this information helpful. There was new frames of reference to look at the information with, so that's great. The way you presented it is less intimidating as well. It's more welcoming to say, hey, you're in charge of your own destiny here. You're in charge of your own life and the outcomes of your life. So it's really important to take stock, as you say, to see where you are with your plans, and then you can make adjustments and you make new plans accordingly.
Exactly. And like I said, much easier to change things on paper than it is in real life. And especially once you're behind an 8 ball, right? You're behind that 8 ball.
Absolutely.
And I will say with insurance is, there is a process called underwriting when it comes to insurance. And that is the insurance company going through the process of qualifying the risk that they're going to take to issue that policy. Right. I do not know whether any client will get insurance or not until they pass underwriting.
Right.
I've had 27-year-olds decline, and I had 85-year-olds get approved. Right.
Yeah.
So it is all based on health. But I rather know whether you can afford it, or whether you can get it or not ahead of time, because if you can't, then the plan definitely needs to be changed.
Yeah.
So my commitment, and I made this to Lisa, that anyone who wants to have a consultation with me, reach out to me. There is zero charge for that consultation, and I will do a financial plan for you as a business owner.
Very valuable, and I appreciate that offer. And I would suggest everybody takes it up on that, because that's a very valuable exercise. So there is a question here.
Yep.
Starting a small business, we sometimes run out of money, marketing, inventory, logistics, financial investor. What stage should we look for a financial advisor in business?
From the day you start.
Agree. And if you haven't now, start now, right?
Start now.
Did just offer you an opportunity to talk. So
exactly.
I absolutely start now and have that conversation with Syd, because I would agree. Because a good financial advisor can also help you budget, plan for your investments and things you want to do. And even if it's not today, you can make the plans to say, okay, in a year's time, I can do this, or 6 months, I'll be able to do this because I've saved money, I've budgeted. You help me sort of get in budget and in line with what I need to do.
Exactly. Part of the plan does include budgeting, cash flow management. The plan from a business owner, especially when you're starting off, it gives you clarity, because we can trigger the milestones, and you know what those milestones are, right? It's like, okay, according to the plan, when I hit 100,000 in sales, I could afford to do this now. We'll spend more in
Absolutely.
marketing. That's what the plan is there for. And
Yeah.
what's more importantly, especially when you have a young family, you don't want to blow them up also. So you'll be very focused on growing the business. And sometimes though, you overextend yourself on the business side and you
Yep.
shortchange the personal side. And you want to be very aware of that.
100%. I agree. And that's a great point too. And as you say, just being mindful of that, and especially a family and all those things like that. Like, it's like, wow, you forget about these stuff. You forget about
Oh yeah. And I say that because of experience. I've done it, right? And hence why I became an advisor. When I was running my consulting business, I didn't have advisors like this, and it's very important that you start right away.
I love that. And what's the other thing? What's the budget that we should look for a good financial advisor? Oh, that's a great question.
So that's an awesome question. I'll tell you how I get paid. I do not charge for consultations. I do not charge for written plans. I charge an advisory fee on the assets that I manage for you. So it's a percentage of, say it's 2%. If it's $100, then it's 2% of $100 that you invest, right? So especially when you're younger, there's not a lot of fees, right? Especially with the model that I run, you don't have to pay out of pocket. It's just a percentage of the amount you invest.
That's great. Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's awesome.
Right.
And have that conversation, right? Sid, don't be afraid to ask, how do you get paid? Right?
Yeah.
How do you, I can tell you when I worked with my financial advisor, he gave me a couple of scenarios based on my comfort level, based on, which way, and then, he recommended which way was to go, and here's why, but ultimately it's your decision. And so we had a great conversation, and I wasn't afraid to ask because it was my money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And especially when it comes to young people or people starting off, there isn't a lot of money to spend upfront on a per hour advisor.
Yeah.
Right. So it's much easier just to pay a percentage of the amount invested.
That's right.
Right. So if you don't have a lot, you're not paying a lot.
That's right.
Right. And even as the asset grows, your advisor fee comes down anyway. So
that's right. That's right. Because as the asset grows, you see it's still counterintuitive. Yeah, it changes, right? It adjusts. Adjusts is what I was trying to say.
It adjusts is good too.
I think so. And Sarah just wants to clarify, can we start talking to advisors even before the business has started making money? I know the answer.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because before the business is still you personally.
Yeah.
Right. And a good advisor should be able to run scenarios on what the business projection is, but also what you have personally.
That's right.
Because from a tax point of view, it is separate and you have to plan for it separately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So, and then again, yeah, I got an okay and a smiley face, which I love to see. So, and you have a free offer from Syd to help you. So that's what I want to make sure.
There's my contact info on the page. Please send me an email or call me. I'm more than happy to sit down and set up a consultation and give you some advice.
That's great. Thanks, Syd. Thanks
No
for everything. So mindful that it's we're just at 6:00 now. Omar, I'm just going to ask if you wouldn't mind just putting up that last slide for us, if you wouldn't mind, just with Edge's contact information.
Can I stop sharing my screen?
Yes, thank you. Okay. And then is there any other questions or anything else anybody would like to ask, or if there's something they're like, oh, I wish we could have talked about this or anything like that. We're happy to we've got a few minutes. If everybody is okay, then we'll certainly, there we go. I just wanted this here just so that you can stay in the loop. For those of you who are not following social media with Ed Sheridan, please make note of this, because there's lots of good information, lots of postings, all kinds of stuff about upcoming events, you know, programming, things like that go on, and Edge is very progressive that way. So you want to make sure that you stay in the loop for all this information coming at you as well. So I think that's it. I'm getting a lot of, I'll just let you know. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the info. Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So a lot of thank yous here. So that's very good. And I will
Well, that's
personally
good.
thank you very much for your time today. Thank you
Thank you. It was a
for,
pleasure being here.
yeah, it was a pleasure having you. And thank you for the conversation. I appreciate your willingness to sort of share and talk to us and have that conversation and be able to sort of, you know, real life examples we appreciate, because I know that's and in terminology that we can all understand. And I'm not a financier, so sometimes some of these things, terminology I hear sort of boggles my brain, but you present it in a very easy to understand way. So I thank you again. And lastly, I will thank you for your offer. As a business professional in the community, I appreciate you putting your time and energy and putting it out there like that, because I recognize the value of what that costs you. So from one
Awesome.
business owner to another, I say thank you to that as well.
Thank you very much. I'm more than happy to do it.
Okay. Well, on that note, folks, if everybody's all set to go, I think we'll call it a night. It's still nice out there. The sun is still shining. And I think it would be great to go out and just enjoy while we can still enjoy the sunlight. So thanks again for being here. Thanks for joining us. And we'll look forward to see you again next time. So thanks
Awesome.
again.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay
Goodbye.
safe, stay well. Take care then.